So when conception vessel or governing vessels show that they're under energy with a priority head point, and bladder shows an indicator change when, let's say, tugging down in the water element, which is, again, if you look at the navel here, and I'm going to pull down to the water element, which would be down to the right, and that would be weak, then I can touch the bladder alarm point to make sure it's bladder, and that would go weak. Or I could touch the kidney alarm points and see if those are weak. So in her example, let's say I go to the bladder alarm point, and that goes weak. And now I've got central anterior fontanelle or governing showing under energy, but bladder over energy. Now, whenever there's over energy in a meridian, in the 5 elements, there is going to be an under energy somewhere. So in this case, I start looking for where the closest under energy is in the flow, where the over energy got blocked and built up, and the under energy was not fed from that blockage. So we're going to look at the chart here so you can see. I'm going to give some examples. So therefore, it's best to look on a chart, and that's why I love having this chart, so you can really see what we've got going on. So in my example here, I have bladder over, and I'm going to say, well, what would be a potential under? If you didn't maybe pick it up on the head points, a couple things could exist. Well, actually several. One that's somewhat common is a split, where you might have an over energy on one side and an under on the other. This happens to be one of the most common meridians that have this pattern, because the sacrospinalis will be tight on one side and flaccid on the other, or weak. So that's a common pattern. So let's say if the bladder, is balanced on the other side, or it's just usually one side or the other. And by the way, you can, if you're doing the midline alarm point, which again I'll show you over here. So if I'm touching the alarm point, or having the person touch it probably in this case, and I get a weak response. Now with the eyes, I'll look one way, have them look one way, and let's say it goes strong. It goes from weak to strong. It says that's the side that the over energy is. Then I'll have them look the other way and see if that way changes from weak to strong. Whatever side changes, and it can be both, means that's where the over energy is. But in a split meridian, which I've had in classes, like 25% of the people would have a split meridian, then what I find is, now we've got an over on one side and an under on the other. In this case, what we do is we put the horary point, which would be water on bladder, and then that's bladder 66. That's the water point on bladder. And that on the weak side, meaning the under energy side, that brings energy from the over and balances the two out. So I'm not thinking about like, I found that, let's say, central or governing was under, and because there's no water point or any element points on those meridians. Now you can still, strengthen those meridians, as I mentioned, but in terms of the over energy in bladder, we're looking for where there's an under on the 5 elements. Now let's look at some other examples. Now the next most common would be a husband-wife. Not necessarily common, but that's the next closest blockage. Because we look at what's the closest under energy to the over energy following a flow. So this is where, in this case, the wife is under energy and the husband is over energy in this example. So again, what I would use is kidney 4, which is the low point that brings energy out of husband yang bladder into under energy yin. So I would, check the kidney muscles like the neurolymphatic. So I'd check the kidney muscles being the psoas and see if either of those are weak. Next, I would say, well, if, say, bladder's that's balanced and kidney, there's no under energy there. So what's the next closest thing? Well, you have in the 5 elements, you have the Sheng cycle. So in this case, if bladder is under energy and I'm checking popliteus muscles, then I see, if those are under energy, then I'm going to do what's called the tonification points. Now, if you look down here, for the green, because it's gallbladder, we're going to be right here, and you'll see there is the first point, it says is bladder 66, like I mentioned, that is the water point on gallbladder, and the water point, that's water point in bladder, and the water point on gallbladder is gallbladder 43. Actually, is the, is that what it says? Wait a minute first. Yes. Yep, gallbladder 43. I was right. They're so small to see there. So if we look then, the bladder, water point in bladder is bladder 66, and the water point on gallbladder is gallbladder 43. Now the way you can think of that is it's saying, okay, the mother feeds the son. So think of having a phone that goes directly to the mother's house, and it's the water phone on gallbladder, and she's got her own water phone, in this case, bladder. It's got bladder 66, gallbladder 43, and that's a direct channel to say, come on over, let's get that going there. Now, the next thing we do is we call on, when you're doing tonification points, which are great when you got a Sheng cycle, is we call on the grandmother. In this case, large intestine is the grandmother of gallbladder. And so now we look for the metal point on large intestine, which is going to be large intestine 1, and it shows it here. And then it's going to be gallbladder 44. So those are the second points to hold. And I'll demonstrate this if we see this with Adelita today. And those then basically seal in and confirm we've got energy balance, so we'll no longer have this alarm point testing strong when we accomplish that, and whatever muscles were here will now test strong as well. So the next thing we might see is potentially small intestine or liver. Liver wouldn't be the tonification point necessarily, but let's say liver's under. We would still do the water point on liver. So that happens to be liver 8, which if you again look on your chart here, liver 8 is right here on the inside of the knee. And so that would then bring energy in. You don't necessarily have to do extra points. That would be that point. And then if heart, small intestine, any of these others, you're still going to do the water point on whatever the under energy meridian is. So basically, you don't have to balance the central or governing with something coming from bladder to feed it. You're balancing within the cycles of energy flows. And the other one happens to be on the superficial 24-hour clock. That would be kidney is right after bladder in the superficial flow, which also happens to be, in this case, the husband, wife, so it also fits in the 5 elements. But you then can, after doing that, you could check and see is the central or governing now balanced, and if not, do the appropriate points. Or even if you balance the central and governing first, I would still look for where's the under energy following the over energy. And again, here is the formula. You're looking for the under energy closest to the over energy following a flow. So that way, think of a dam in a river, and there might be low water all the way down the dam. Or like think of the locks, like the Panama Canal, and there's over energy somewhere. Well, what's the closest? So when I flood that closest area with more energy, it draws right from the over energy. They now become balanced, and then they can keep flowing down their stream to feed the ones following that blockage.